chance to ask questions, communicate with others that have similar knowledge base. Everyone on this call is pretty much an expert in the serve now by going through the program. So it's great to be able to converse and chat and talk through issues you may be having with any of your students or with yourself if you're working on improvement yourself. So want to open it up. Please feel free to use the chat box to throw in some questions, and then then I'll call on certain folks if we want to expand on certain things. So if you haven't been on one of these before, it's really just a chance for you to ask some questions regarding things that you've been dealing with, maybe some things that aren't working so well with some of your players, or the opportunity for you to sort of add to some things that you're doing. So feel free to use the chat box, and we can get going on some of the Q&As specifically around some of the topics in the course, but also if there's other things that you're seeing, whether it's on tour, whether it's with your juniors, with your club players, would love to discuss some of those as well. So Thomas has a video he'd like to share. Thomas, I'll let you do that. Make sure the video is ready to go, and we can share it.
Yeah, it's ready.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, now I'm a host. Let me know when you're able to see my screen.
Perfect.
Do you see it? Okay.
Yeah, it's
so
up.
This is a 15-year-old pretty promising player from Colombia. He's top 300 ITF, and specifically, I'd like to get your thoughts on whether or not he's getting too much, if he's going too much into his lower back. Let me know when you want me to stop it so you can take a look. Or we can go stage by stage if that's better.
Yeah, no, this is good. Go through this a couple more times just so everyone can take a look at it.
Yeah. So the things that I took some notes, and I'd like you to maybe correct me if I'm looking at it wrong. The release, this is kind of like a flat serve down the body. Release might be maybe a little bit high, and the ball ends up getting a little bit to his left. Then
just a tad. I mean, if he gets it in the right spot, it wouldn't be an issue. But if you feel like it's drifting left, then yeah, make that adjustment.
So would you say that it's drifting left a bit?
The ball's not bad. The ball actually isn't too bad. It's his body that's a real problem.
Okay. So then if we get
the ball's
to stage...
at like 12 o'clock, basically, he makes contact right around 12. Yeah, right there. It's basically at 12 o'clock where he's making contact. Okay. So the ball itself is not too bad, but his body's very open and he's falling obviously to the left.
Yes.
So from your standpoint, where would you make that adjustment to fix that?
So I would start with maybe looking at stage 3 and guessing that would be somewhere around here.
Mm-hmm. So he's got pretty good hip turn. His only big issue is he's shifting his weight a little too far forward too early.
Okay.
You see that a little bit on the right video?
So like right here.
Way over, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you can get him to hold that weight back just a frame or two earlier, that would make a big difference. And then when he comes out of it, he's
Yeah.
got to obviously stay side on a lot longer.
Mhm. This right here, the shoulder, the elbow position and the shoulder, is that a concern or no?
Depends. Like right now, it is a little bit, but I think he's doing that because his weight's so far shifted forward.
Uh-huh.
See how far it has to go from there
Yes.
to get to there?
Uh-huh.
And that, so you want to correct the lower body first before really
Yes.
worrying about the arm. Once you
Yeah.
do that, if his arm's still in the same spot, and that's that hyperangulation position that we don't want,
Yes. Yes.
from that standpoint, then it's
Uh-huh.
an area that we would want to make an adjustment. But again, I
Okay.
think you're going about it the right way, trying to go with the lower body first.
Yes.
And then as he comes up through here, so keep going to
Is
stage 4.
oh, okay.
That's very steep, obviously.
I was gonna ask about that. Is that because maybe
Yeah. That's
the
because all
hips
his
are
weight
too
shifted
flat?
forward. He won't.
Okay.
He'll always want that position with the upper body if
Okay.
his weight shifted so far forward.
Okay. So we would want more weight on the back leg and maybe a little bit more tilt in
Correct. If
the
you get
hips.
more weight on the back leg, you'll automatically
Uh-huh.
get a better angle there.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. One big question that I have. So we go to stage 4, somewhere around here. He's starting
keep
to open
going.
up.
Just one more frame. Yeah. See, notice how the back calves starting to move already. So his
Yes.
hips are starting to rotate. So
Yeah.
the right hip is starting to shift forward and the left
Yeah.
hip is starting to shift left and back.
Yeah.
So he's got this
Yeah.
counterclockwise movement already
Yes.
starting. You don't want it to happen this early.
Yeah.
So
And we can
he's just
see
doing it
also
way too early.
and we can see the front leg. We can start to see the tossing arm over there a little bit. That would
And
mean
you're
that
right.
he's
He's
opening up.
definitely arching his back too much, but that's because his hips have opened up. I wouldn't be as worried
Okay.
about his back right now until you correct
Okay.
the rest of it.
Okay.
But you
So-
see how he's arching his back so much because his hips have already opened completely.
Okay. So okay, address the stage 3 first, but this is not a position that's good for the lower back, especially for a 15-year-old, right?
Correct.
Okay.
You want him. One of the cues we use sometimes for this is just to try to get the top of his shoulders to point to the sky longer. So you try to raise their shoulders up to their ears as they're coming up through the jump. So it's a cue that sometimes works for this situation because it keeps
Okay.
them taller.
Okay. So you want something like a little bit straighter.
Yeah, exactly. You'd want
instead
him.
of like this.
Correct.
Perfect. Then as he's making contact, is that
See, the ball's
what's
in
it
a good
called?
spot. There's not.
Yes.
You're not upset about where the ball toss is, but you are upset
Okay.
about where the body is
Uh-huh.
and how much he's leaning to the left. So
Also,
yeah.
right there.
So you'll correct that, and you'll have no problems then with where the ball toss is.
Uh-huh. And then as he goes over here, is that's either no long axis rotation or
No, it's pretty
Yeah.
good. That's acceptable. I mean, it's late,
Okay.
but it's going to be better, honestly, once he's side on.
Okay.
So, I'm not too concerned about where he's at there. I wouldn't worry about it at all. I think you're going to notice immediately the moment he stays side on longer from 3
Yeah.
through 6, that long axis rotation is going to be even more pronounced.
Okay. Perfect. So to summarize, keep his weight back a little bit longer. Maybe don't even mention the elbow yet until we address the lower body.
Yeah.
And then just analyze one more time, and if he's still taking his elbow back, then try to do something about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry right now on the elbow. If you correct
Yeah.
everything else that we talked about corrected and he's still got too much rotation of the elbow there, that hyperangulation, then we would address it. But I don't think
Okay.
you'll see that. You typically never see that once the rest of that stuff is taken care of.
Okay.
And Jeff had a good question. Is there too much knee bend? That was Jeff's question regarding this
Okay.
player. And there's not too much. It's the question is, does he come out of it quickly enough? So that's acceptable depth. It's not like there's a fatal flaw in his knee bend. It's not like he's way too deep. The question is it optimized? Meaning that can he come out of that knee bend with the most amount of power production that he can generate? And that is potentially something you may want to look at. So if you go back down to stage 3, and that's that sort of peak knee bend position right there, that angle is fine, and where he's at is okay. So I wouldn't say that's too deep, but you may play around with that once you get everything else corrected to see, can we optimize pace? If he's serving, let's say it's 100 miles an hour he's serving at right now. If you figure out with a little less knee bend, he may be able to come out of it just a bit quicker. That may give him 103 or 104 miles an hour on his serve. So it's not something I'd be too concerned with at all right now, because you got bigger issues you want to address. But once you get all that other stuff figured out and he's really optimized his load, he's optimized his release angle, he's optimized staying side on, and his body position's going in the right direction, he's got that shoulder over shoulder position, then you may take a look at this and tweak it. So normally how I go about this is try to get the main components of the serve figured out from a health and safety standpoint first, and a load perspective. And then once they get the basics down on that and they're doing that pretty well, then we start tweaking out, okay, how do we increase velocity, or how do we increase spin on the kick serve, or how do we do some of these performance improvements? Sometimes they're all connected, obviously, but sometimes they're not, meaning that we get the base model down of the serve, and then then the tweaking happens, the little differences that happen over time to add speed, add velocity, add the ability to slice better, things like that. So that was a good question, Jeff.
Great, thank you.
Awesome.
Right, Mark.
Thank you. Great example. Good looking player as well. Looks like you've got a fun project on your hands there.
Yeah, well, he's not my player. I'm helping his coach. I'm a good friend of his.
Good. No, that's the way. That's it. As we always say, it takes a village to make a player. So yeah, there's always a handful of people involved in good players. I'm gonna Thomas, can you make me host again?
Okay. Did that work? Are you host?
Yeah, I think so.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then Luis, I'll turn over to you. Just try to make sure the video is ready to go. Okay, Luis, you should be ready to go now. You can share your screen.
It doesn't appear that I'm the host. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it should.
Yep.
Yep. It says it on my end that you're good to go now.
Not in mine. I'm trying to share, and it says that only the host can share in this meeting.
Okay, I reclaimed it. Let me send it back to you now. Make host.
All right. I think I got it. Yeah. Can you see the screen?
Perfect. Yeah, looks great.
All right. I'll show you the video first in the side view and then in the back view.
Okay.
Get some comments. What do you think? And after, I have a couple questions. All right. I'll go with the 1/4 speed, and then I'll go frame by each step. All right. So around there is the release.
Mm-hmm.
And here we get to around here is the load.
Yep.
There is the cocking position.
Yep.
Acceleration somewhere around there.
Yep.
Contact, deceleration, and landing. Okay.
Great. So what do you see? What is your sort of area of focus? Because the player obviously has a pretty good serve. You know, there's a couple things that I think you can definitely, you know, help her with. But what are the things you're working on?
Well, from the start, we worked on. She had a very low elbow before, and also she had a hyperangulation.
Yep.
So we tried to fix that. We've been trying for her to coil a little more with the hip, which hasn't been easy, but we've been trying to do that.
Can you go back to stage 3? Because there's just like overall mechanics from the side look pretty good. We'll take a look from the back in a second, but there's one big thing that I think you can try to continue to work on. So, and from the back we'll see better, but my guess is she's releasing a little too straight on with her ball toss. So that's going to potentially, and notice how she's way into the front leg there.
All right.
See how the weight shift is all on that front leg. There's very little at all on the back. And you'll see once she comes out of the jump, just before basically the cocking stage, if you go to that stage and stop, notice how the front foot's still on the ground. The back foot has been off the ground for 2 or 3 frames already.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's not ideal. That means that her weight is pretty much all front leg loaded. And we know we shift from back to front late in the service motion, but go back about 2 frames. Go back a little. Yeah, right there. See how there's nothing on the back leg at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all front leg. So you make that little adjustment, a lot of this other stuff will help tremendously, I think, because it's obvious she's got pretty good general athleticism. She does a lot of things pretty well. It's just her timing, her syncing of her lower body and upper body is off. And that's probably what you're sort of dealing with. You're seeing some of that.
Yeah. Also, I think she goes to the knee bend first, and then she tries to coil. I don't know if
yeah, you're right. You can't do it like that really very effectively. I mean, people try sometimes, but it's way more powerful and explosive to do it all at once.
Okay, all at once is better, no?
Yeah. And so do you have the back view? Because the back view will be able to see some of this stuff. So yeah, as you said, notice how there's no hip turn and she tries to get it all with her arm. So if she could coil. So one of the tweaks you can do on coiling is you can try to get her back foot a little bit more towards the center tee, just like a few centimeters or an inch or two, just a little more to make it a little bit easier for her to coil into that back hip.
All right. In
because,
this position,
without her coiling into the back hip, it's going to be real hard to load that back leg well enough. Back leg serving will be huge for her because you need to get her comfortable loading that. It just doesn't look like she's comfortable loading the back leg.
Yeah, I agree.
And then, but if you continue, stop here.
Yep.
Yep. One more. Notice when the legs are straight. Yeah. See how the back leg's already off the ground? It's a little early. But if she loads the back leg better, that's not going to happen anymore. She's going to come out of her back leg much better, and that'll take care of that.
All right.
But she's really good here. She's side on. This is So when you showed that, I don't know if you can get back to that one. So this is for Thomas. Your player doesn't get to that position very well. That's the thing we want to fix on Thomas's player previously.
Yes.
This is the side on position here that is really nice, actually. So she does a really good job of staying side on here.
Yes.
So yeah, this player is going to have a great serve. How old is she?
She's 15 as well. She's also around 300 ITF.
Yeah. So she's got really nice upside because you see she's got a lot of components that look pretty good. Just has one issue that I think you'll be able to correct this week. I don't think it'll take you very long to make that adjustment. Just got to really cue the right things and make sure that she gets it with what she's doing. But she's side on perfect here. This is really nice.
What about the deceleration? You think that's good?
Keep going. One more. Yep. So you see how that arm is really out there. This was a kick serve, it looks like.
Yeah, it was a kick serve.
Yeah. So notice, for everyone else watching, notice how far to the right that arm is. You're not going to see that typically on a first serve, but you can see great long axis rotation there. So yeah, she's got really good upside from a serve standpoint. So hopefully you can get her excited about the potential that she's got over the next couple of years to be like, hey, we're gonna make this serve into a real weapon. Right now, does she just try to roll it in, or is she going after her serves?
Well, it's going after the first serve a lot. Yeah, and she's still growing, and she's not too strong yet. But I also have a small question on the in the release. She makes a small movement in the left foot.
Yeah, can you actually go back to the other frame? I just want to see one more thing on the release. I wasn't paying it enough as to where her arm comes out. So yeah, release. Go ahead. Yeah, notice how pretty straight on that arm is towards the net. If you can get it more over to the right net post, that's going to help her coil tremendously.
All right.
So really try to make sure she releases her left arm towards the right net post and that she's looking, her head is looking over her bicep as she releases rather than right in front of her.
All right. Okay. Thanks. And
go ahead. Sorry, your question about the foot?
The left, I don't know if I think it's just style, but look where she's going to move the left foot.
Yeah, that's fine. There's a lot of players that adjust at that point. It's just one, it makes her rotate. It should make her rotate a little easier by doing that, but she's not actually rotating into her hip. But a lot of players do that subconsciously to help get a little bit more hip rotation. So definitely don't, I wouldn't personally adjust that at all. I would let that be her style. And it should help her coil into that hip. Luis, Thomas asked about which app are you using for the videos you were showing?
I think he left the meeting by mistake.
Oops. Yeah. Okay, yeah, he's back. So Luis, a question from Thomas was, which app are you using for those videos? He was curious.
Oh, that my phone. I'm in the phone right now. So
yeah, no problem. It happens all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, the question was just what app were you using?
It's called OnForm.
OnForm.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
It's a free app. I think it's you mentioned one before in one of the question and answers that was called I don't know if it was Coach's Eye or something like that.
Coach's Eye is a pretty common one. They're actually stopping business though, so they're not going to be around much more.
Yes, that's why I was asking. I'm looking for a new one.
Yeah. So I mean, Dartfish Express is pretty good. It's got some challenges if you want to do constant stuff. It's good for photos and for splits, but you know, there's a few others out there that, and so I'll maybe make a post on some of the ones that are out there. We get to try out a bunch of different ones.
Perfect. Thank you.
Luis, that's great. Any last thoughts on your player before we move?
Okay. I think I got it. I was having the same things about the weight on the right leg in the loading, and I think
But I
she was.
think if you get the stage 2, the release, the left arm more towards the right net post, that's going to help probably the most out of any cue you do, because the way she's releasing right now, it's very difficult for her to easily coil. If you get her to release more to that right net post, the arm, it's going to make that whole coil so much easier.
All right. And the knee bend, you thought it was okay?
Yeah, knee bend was okay. I wouldn't address that now. The knee bend is one of those things I don't usually address that unless there's some glaring issue, and most players aren't glaring on the knee bend. I mean, all of you know enough to make those adjustments, but normally we will adjust the knee bend once we sort of get a lot of the other areas sort of figured out, because the knee bend a lot of the time is one of the easier things to adjust. You can do that in 5 reps and typically get them comfortable, feeling good. One of the biggest things also with all this cueing is they should be able to make those adjustments pretty quickly and pretty successfully immediately. When I say immediately, within 1 session. If they're not getting it at all, or it's very difficult, it probably means you're using the wrong cue. You're not giving the information in a way that they're understanding, or because when we're talking this level player, when they're a good athlete, I'm not talking about a complete beginner, but when they're a good athlete like this and a good player, I always see immediate sort of adjustments and improvements in players. They may not be perfectly accurate on every serve, but they at least have the mechanics down and they have the ability to load effectively. So just a tip that if it's taking you a long time, you're maybe not using the right cue, or you're not getting your point across in the right way for that athlete. So you may need to use a different way of explaining it, whether it's video, whether it's kinesthetic awareness, whether it's a different drill or a different cue, things like that.
Okay, one last question I also had. Do you think she has a lot of, or a little time loss between the knee bend and the hip coil? I was trying to get her to turn first before going to the knee bend. I don't know if that's correct, or she should
I mean, it happens in sequence. So the turn starts as the ball is released, and as the ball is released, you start rolling into the knee bend. So definitely focus on that first before the knee. You want the coil to happen before the knee bend. You really want it to happen about the similar time. But focus from a cueing standpoint to have the ball releasing as she's coiling.
All right, I was trying to do that, and it's been working pretty good. I don't have a feel of that, but it's been working.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's exactly the right sort of frame or timing or sequencing. So great, that's really good. Jared, do you have your video ready to go? Here you go. You should be good to share your screen.
Hi, so we're just okay, why? So it just doesn't seem to. Oh, there we go. Share screen. Let's show this. Okay, let me know if you can see that.
Yeah, this looks great.
There you can see it. Okay.
Works well.
Okay, so this girl is 12 and she's playing competitively. And my question just relates to her dropping her right elbow and whether that's an issue, because it seems to, I'll show you here. So as we go along, okay, so as we go along, right about here. See how the right elbow drops?
Hmm.
And then, but my question I'm having is as she comes out of it, we go along. Where's that? To me, she seems to get into a pretty good position eventually. Like the elbow doesn't seem low here.
No, like you said, she's in a great position there, but she's lost a lot of speed on her serve by what she's doing. So I'm guessing she doesn't serve that hard.
No, not consistently. She'll bang one occasionally, but not really, not
Yeah.
consistently.
Because like you said, she looks great here. I mean, side on, coming up. Let's see what contact looks like, because she looks really good there. Yeah, she's a little straight on with her chest at contact. Go ahead, keep going. See how she finishes.
Mm. Yeah, there's not a
So
lot of
she,
long axis rotation.
yeah, she
there.
doesn't have really any. So it is an interesting one. That's the beauty of the tennis serve. We see all sorts. Look where she lands as well. She lands behind the baseline.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, she gets into cocking okay and comes out of cocking okay, but
Mhm.
you definitely want to address what you noticed early on. So if you go back to that,
To the low elbow position.
yeah, go back even earlier. So even a bit earlier than that.
Kind of there. Oh, a little further. Hold on. Kind of there-ish.
Yep. So go back a bit more, just so we
Even.
know where the exact start of the issue is. Go back a little earlier. So this is the biggest thing, is we got to figure out where the first issue is. So there she looks okay, I would say, you know, a little bit open with the racket face, but
Mhm.
overall her arm action looks decent.
Mhm.
So from what happens from here, this is the question, is why does she go into the funky position?
Yeah. I was wondering if she's almost staying in the knee bend a little too long, or it's too
Correct.
deep, and then the elbows just she's kind of buying time, so to speak.
Correct.
So you see right there, so she's still down in the knees, and the arm's starting to move.
Yep. So how do we fix that? Notice how she's what we call, she's got stuck at the bottom. So she's spending 3, 4, 5, 6 frames in the bottom as her arm's moving, which is not a good position to be in. A lot of wasted energy, things like that. So if you go back a little further, what we got to figure out is how do we go straight from keep going, right straight from there, about a little, go down a little bit.
Kind of there.
Yeah, basically that's the last point. From here, her legs need to start coming up now.
Mhm.
So that's going to be your goal, is how do we get her to now start driving the legs? So for whatever reason, Thomas suggested maybe the ball toss is too high. That's probably true. That is true, because it has to be for her to be stuck down that long. So the question is, do you address the ball toss or the knee bend? And sometimes you can do it simultaneously. You can say, hey, get the ball toss lower and don't get stuck in the bottom. So you say, hey, I want you to not bend your knees, but still jump into the serve. And that's a cue that works pretty well. So your goal is to, probably the next few days or few times when you see her, is show her this position and say, this is the position we want you to now jump from, and not go down any further, because it's fine. She's got plenty of knee bend there. But now if you go forward a few frames, look what happens here.
Oops. Sorry, skip that.
Okay.
There we go. So that would be.
Yep. So if you
That
keep
was less
going, yep. So
forward.
yeah, go forward from here slowly. So 1, 2. See how she's still stuck in the bottom, 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 still. She hasn't started coming out of it. She starts coming out of it.
Hmm.
So that's your solution. I mean, that's very clear of where the disconnect is right now. So the goal for you is just work on that stage. I wouldn't right now worry about anything else. We got to get that one corrected. And once she does, I think you'll see a huge difference in, her serve speed, first off. But second, I think she'll get a much better long axis rotation as well.
Yeah. Her long axis rotation is generally okay. I would say
Mhm.
it's degraded a little bit over the last little bit, but I think this is just kind of a poor example where she didn't do it, but that's usually not too bad. But definitely getting this knee bend has definitely been an issue.
So
the
the
last
biggest thing is what works a lot of times is, a couple people on there both said it looks like the ball toss is way too high. So
Mhm.
that's a huge piece of it. So the question is, address the ball toss first, see if you can use that as your cue, to just really shorten it up, and really a lot lower than she probably even thinks is normal, because the biggest thing that she's used to this, she thinks this is a normal motion for her. So you're going to have to get her to feel something very different. And, the goal is for her to not wait in that bottom position at all. So the moment she gets to that bottom position, she can be in there one frame on the video, but she shouldn't be in there more than 2 frames.
Okay.
So 1 to 2 frames at the bottom is acceptable, but on your speed, the way this is set up, if she's there for 4, 5, 6, 7 frames like she is now, that's way too long.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
That's
Is it-
awesome. I think you'll be able to make a quick adjustment for that one.
Yeah. I hope so. Yeah. She's quite keen, so that'll be good. Is it possible? Can I show one other quick one?
Yeah.
Just like, this. When I was taking the course, I showed this club player, and you won't remember it, but it's changed quite a lot. My only question is, I think it's the same issue with the knees, because if you see when the knee bend ends about, like, that's the end of load, right? Where the knees, you see the racket's already dropped.
Yep. Yeah, we see this a lot in this sort of level player when they were maybe taught very early on, up together, down together. So as it comes up, they immediately drop the racket behind and they don't link it with the legs. So the biggest thing with the player like this is, you need to find that little bit of pause, that stage 3 position, that you need to have that racket pause just for a frame. And the challenge sometimes to get that is you've got to, instead of go both arms up together, either have a slight delay with the arm, or what I do a lot that works pretty well for a player like this is you have them look at the tip of the racket as long as possible, like a salute. That allows them to sort of have that slight delay in that position. And then the other thing is, notice how she goes the traditional squat, where she just throws the ball up and then immediately squats. Notice how her back leg hasn't coiled at all.
Yes.
If you can work on the coil a little bit, it'll really help that position as well.
It'll almost, I've always felt like with players like this, that it's a timing thing where they're trying to buy time, in a sense. Like, they put the racket down and they wait at the bottom because everything else isn't coordinated. Like, the toss isn't there at the right time, and basically like that.
Correct. It's what you got to try as best you can to simplify. And also, a lot of the time, lowering the ball toss for players like this is a huge advantage, because every millisecond they have to wait creates a potential conflict in upper and lower body for them. So having a lower ball toss and coming out of it a little quicker is a much easier thing to repeat, because there is no thought process or timing issue typically. It's just load, explode. Get into the load, get out of the load.
Okay, good. Okay, yeah, I'll definitely give that a go. And then just go to impact quickly.
Yeah.
I think obviously the legs are kind of far apart. That's one thing. So she's kind of uncoiled, and that'll be due to the lower body load in stage 3.
Correct. She's gone into the squat. So when she comes out of the squat, her only option is to over rotate early. And then, as you can see, she's got this is a big slice serve she's doing, and she
Yeah,
won't.
it's kind of a second serve.
Yep, she won't have really any real long axis rotation either, and it's hard because she's over rotated. So
Yes.
if you can fix her a little bit, again, it's at this level, you got to sort of pick your poison a little bit, especially if she's not coming all that often to get lessons. You've got to sort of start with the most impactful early in the motion. So I would definitely work on the coil and work on lowering the ball toss as your first two things to try to work on. And I think that'll help with a lot of the rest of this stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks very much. That'll be
Yeah,
really
no problem at
helpful for
all.
her.
If you can make me host again, that would be great.
Yeah.
And then Avola's got a question. Should the service feet be off the ground at the same time the racket is striking the ball? Yes, you want to be, for any decent player that jumps, you definitely, that's the optimum, is you want to be actually your apex of your jump height at contact. That's the goal, is to jump and make contact as high as you can within reason. But you want to be in that position. And then the second part of the question is also, should the server be pushing off the ground at the same time he or she is releasing from their cocking position? So if they're coming out of their cocking position, they're actually already off the ground. The back foot is slightly off the ground. The front foot is still on the ground at the beginning of cocking, but within a frame after that, it's off the ground. So you definitely, don't want to be pushing into the ground and cocking. That's way too late. Because remember, cocking is the last point in the motion that the upper body's storing energy. Your lower body's already finished its job. You can actually cut your legs off at that point. You don't involve them at all. So you want to make sure that when you're reviewing players, that you're understanding that stage 4, the cocking position, is the last exact moment of upper body stored energy. And everything after that, stage 5 to stage 6, you're accelerating your arm into contact. So really good question, though.
Thanks, appreciate it.
No problem. Great question. So Monty, are you back?
I'm here,
Okay.
and I don't know how to see if I could share the screen here.
Yeah, let me hear. I'm making you host. You see that? You should be able to share your screen now.
Share. Only the host can share this meeting.
Okay, so
Let me maybe get out of.
yeah, if you can cancel your other account, because you've got
There you
both.
go.
I think I
Okay, there you
gave
go.
you the other one.
Okay.
It says Paul Kidd is the host.
Paul, could you make me host again? That would be helpful.
Yeah, hang on one second here, Mark. I don't know how that switched over.
No, neither do I actually. I'm not exactly
I
sure.
haven't touched the computer.
Actually, I think I can do it here.
You have to do it from your side. It won't let me do it from here.
Got it. Yeah, I got it back. So
Okay. Thank you.
Monty, which one are you on right now? Okay, I see. Perfect. Here you go. You should be good now, Monty. Monty, can you hear us? Nope. Okay, I think he's having some challenges. So any final thoughts? We're getting close to time. This has been a really good session, actually. Some really, really good players to look at and some good issues to work on. Any final thoughts from anyone? Jeff, what was your question? Question on the start. Oh, here it is. It seems that the course favors both feet parallel to the baseline at the start. No, there was no real discussion of the feet have to be parallel. I think you mean like that. No, you can have them slightly offset, slightly inset. So there's no, again, that's a bit of a style issue. Like you said, you mention it here. Whatever gives the person the ability to get into the hip turn most effectively. And from a stress on the front knee, it all depends on where you're loading into. Because if you're loading into the knee and driving into that valgus position, which is the knee falling inwards, that's not ideal, obviously, but you should be loading into your hip, not your knee. So if a player does have an issue there, that's why we always talk about, we want to make sure we physically assess the athlete as well, because as coaches, we may be trying to change something technically that they may be hindered to do. They may have an internal hip rotation deficit. And if you've got an internal hip rotation deficit, it's pretty hard to coil maximally. And that's why you may drop the knee to make it a bit easier, or load into the knee too much. So definitely a good question. But again, how you start has a lot of stylistic aspects to it. As we can see from the great servers, compare Serena Williams to Pete Sampras to John Isner to Roger Federer. They all start a little bit differently. They all have slightly different foot positions. So I've never been a big proponent of forcing at all the athletes to start a certain way, because think about Goran Ivanisevic, how good a serve he had, and he had his sort of toe pointing sort of towards the net post. He had a slightly different start. So you just want to make sure that you're not overcoaching sometimes, because we all do that. We all have a preference or a bias in what we like visually, what looks the best. But usually it's sort of the athlete will sort of do what's most comfortable for them. And sometimes we're trying to train them out of their most natural or most comfortable motion. So just be careful if that's something that maybe that you're thinking about. Ask yourself, are they getting in the right position? Are they physically able to get into the right position? And if they are, then maintain sort of what they're doing and make sure they hit their key positions. If they're not, then you may make an adjustment to the start to make it easier for them. Jared, any discussion on the Jensen Brooksby serve? So yeah, we could definitely talk about that. Maybe for the next session, what we can do is I can pull up some video. I don't have it set up right now, but we can do it maybe for the next one. We'll get one in the next month or so, and we can talk about Jensen for sure. He's definitely got some opportunities for improvement. I think all of you would have some thoughts on that. So why don't we do that? Why don't we make that a plan for the next surf session? Because that's a good one. That's an opportunity to look at someone who's obviously, a really good tennis player, has already had some great success at a pretty young age, but obviously has an opportunity for improvement there. And I think all of you would have some really good thoughts on that. So that's a great discussion. Awesome. Well, hey, thanks everyone for making the time. Again, this will be up if you want to review it in the next day or so. So look forward to the next one, and keep sending in your questions as well. We'll try to do some more stuff on this topic and on some others that come up. So take care, everyone.